Aloha and welcome to our video on the skeletal and muscular systems. We're going to identify the functions of bones, and we'll also talk about different kinds of muscles in this video today. So let's take a real quick overview look of the skeletal system. If you notice, there's a couple bones and things, they serve different purposes. We have our bones for movement, which are going to be the long bones, like the ones here in the legs and the arms. But we also have bones for protection, like the skull, which protects the brain, the ribs here, which are going to protect our heart and lungs, and then the pelvis, which will protect some of the lower organs, especially those involved in reproduction. So we can see that they have different functions. Because of the bones, it gives the muscles something to work against, so that allows us to move. Okay, so let's focus again a little bit more on the functions of the skeletal system. So first and foremost, it protects the organs. So as we mentioned, the rib cage protects the heart and the lungs, the vertebra protects the spinal cord, the pelvis protects the reproductive organs, and then the skull is going to protect the brain. And these are going to be bones that will like wrap around that structure and provide protection against it. It's also what gives the body shape. Remember, bones are the framework that support the softer tissues. Most of the body is just going to be soft tissues, so we'd be a lump without the bones. The bones give us our shape. They also allow for movement because that's what the muscles are attached to. So when the muscles move, the bones move, and since the bones give us our shape, that's what allows us to move. It's also where we form blood cells. Bones contain the red marrow, and in the red marrow, it has special cells that make blood cells. So our red blood cells are actually made in the bones. And then finally, we can use the bones to store some minerals. So they'll store calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. When we have that in our diet, it gets stored into the bone, and that's kind of like a bank where it keeps it. If we're not getting enough of these things in our diet, then what it does is it pulls these nutrients out. So you'll hear about things like osteoporosis, and that's when you're older and you're not able to store the calcium. Your body will take the calcium out of the bones, and that'll make your bones a little more brittle. Now, the skeletal system includes bones and cartilage. Cartilage, if we can see right here, is this kind of soft, squishy material. It's in a lot of the joints where it'll provide a little bit of cushion for the bones to rub up against. So it's not like a hard-to-hard surface. There's kind of like something soft there for it. It's also, we have elastic cartilage, which gives us the shape of our ear and our nose. In our throat, we have cartilage, which protects our airways. And then this one down here on the rib cage is kind of important because when we breathe, our rib cage needs to expand a little bit. And if it was all bone, it wouldn't be able to do that. So having that cartilage helps it do that one as well. When we look inside of a bone, we were talking about the red marrow here where we see a lot of the production of blood cells. And you can see there's several different layers to the bones. We have the outsides, insides where it's going to be compact, spongy on the inside, and the marrow deep inside. There's blood vessels that run through it because the bones are alive. It's not just a dead structure, there's living cells in there. Okay, so we talked about bones being allowing us to move. For that to happen, our bones can't be one single solid piece. They have to be various pieces, and they have to be able to interact with each other. And these points of interaction are what we call the joints. There's several different kinds of joints that we have in our body. We have a hinge joint like our knee, which is where we have bones that come together, and they move primarily in just like one direction, like a hinge on a door. And we can see that range of motion primarily here. We also have the ball and socket joints like in our shoulder, and that allows for a lot more movement. We also have those in our hips, and that gives us our arms. It's a full range of motion that we have. We have gliding joints in our wrists, and that allows for a free range of motion as well, and a little bit of different ones from our shoulder. And then we have pivot joints right here, which allow us to turn our head back and forth, side to side. So a couple other things I want to show you. If we take a look at our knee over here, which is a hinge joint, we have a couple different things. We have ligaments that we've talked about briefly, and they'll talk about those in the lesson, but that'll connect bone to bone. So you can see that this one here is going to connect these two bones right along here. We also have tendons, which we'll talk a little bit here in a minute when we talk about the muscles, but that connects the muscle to the bone. So we have tendons and ligaments there. We talked about having the cartilage that we have here as well that allow the bones to interact with each other, but they're not grating and grinding upon each other that way. Okay, so let's do a real quick summarize of the skeletal system. Remember that it's made up of our bones, cartilage, and ligaments. And the functions for the skeletal system are to protect organs, provide structure and shape, give us the ability to move. we can store minerals in them, and they produce our red blood cells. So that's our quick introduction of the skeletal system. Now, moving on to the muscular system, we can see that there are a bunch of different muscles in the body. We're not going to go over a whole bunch of them. I'm not expecting you to memorize all of them. This is just kind of so you can see where they are. And we'll talk about the muscles a little bit more here as we progress forward. Now, one of the things about muscles you want to make sure you know is that most of our paired muscles work in antagonistic pairs, which means they're working against each other. In the example we have here, we have our biceps and we have our triceps. Both of these are the muscles of the upper arm. We have the biceps, which is going to be here, and when the biceps flex, which means they contract, they're going to get shorter. It's going to pull the lower arm up towards the shoulder. So that's how we raise our hands up, is using the biceps. Now our triceps are going to be relaxed when this is happening. And the reason being is when our triceps contract and our biceps relax, then what that's going to do is that's going to pull on the back side of the arm, and that's going to extend the arm outwards. So by those working together in opposition of each other, that's why we can raise our hand and push our hand away. So it kind of works that system. That's what we're talking about antagonistic, is that they're working against each other for the common good here. Now we do have 3 different types of muscle in the body. The first one is the cardiac muscle, and cardiac, and hints here what it is. Cardiac muscle is going to be found in the heart, and it's going to be a muscle that's just designed to work and work and work and work and work. It's always working that way. We don't have any control over it. It's autonomic, so it's just going to continuously beat, and that's what it's for. It's so that the heart will continuously beat, and that's what lets us have a heartbeat and live. Next up, we have skeletal muscles, and skeletal muscles we have control over. These are the ones we'll find, like we talked about, in our bicep and things like that. These are what allow us to move, and we have control over the skeletal muscles with our nervous system. And then finally, we have smooth muscles here, and most of our smooth muscles are going to be the lining of our digestive system. And what that does is that's what allows the food, it's by peristalsis and wave-like motions, and it'll push the food through the digestive system for us. So 3 different kinds of muscle cells. They all serve a slightly different purpose. We have control over one of them. The rest of them are going to be autonomic, and they just kind of work and do their job as they're supposed to without us having to think about it. Okay, so as a quick review of the muscular system, let's go through its structures real fast. We talked about muscles and how there's 3 types. We also mentioned tendons briefly. Tendons are what attaches the muscles to the bones so that they're able to move the bones and it works. Now, the purpose for the muscular system is movement. Okay, without them, we wouldn't be able to move, and that's what it does. It'll produce voluntary movement like our skeletal muscles do, or involuntary movement like our heart and our smooth muscles of our digestive system. Okay, well, that's it for this video. As always, good luck in the lessons. They'll go into a lot more detail there for you, and we will see you in the next video.